Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Madals and today I've got a little bit of Zerg versus Terran action coming up. Whirlwind is the map. I just took a really lovely stretch before I started this cast, so I am feeling so comfy right now. If you haven't had a stretch recently, I think you should. Like, just stretch out your arms, your shoulders, it'll feel good, trust me. Anyway, back to the game. In the bottom right position, we have got the red Zerg player. Some of you may have heard of him. It's IdrA. And his opponent spawning in the top right is the blue Terran player, a barcode. So we're just going to call him barcode, because barcode makes sense. Just trying to decipher what that may mean would be crazy. So what can we be expecting from this game? Well, being a ZvT, it should be pretty exciting in the vertical spawn positions. What I'm really excited to see is what kind of strategy IdrA is going to be going for. The Terran strategy is pretty much, well, it's quite predictable at the moment. Infantry mine is really common. The other thing is you get sometimes a bit of Hellbat play coming in, maybe into some form of mech, but generally speaking, infantry mine is where it's at. So due to that, I'm going to be keeping a big eye out. IdrA, will he be going for the standard sort of Zergling, Baneling, Mutalisk style? Will he go for some Infestor play? I've seen that used really effectively. Will he just rush up into Ultras? All different options available. Maybe even some Muta play. That's certainly a possibility on this map. But in these spawn positions, I don't think Mutalisks are too likely, just because if they were spawned, if IdRA's up here, for example, Mutalisk would be quite nice because you can come in here very quickly, or if you're in cross spawns. But this position, you can only really get into the natural, which isn't always the best thing. IdrA opening with a 15 hatch, which is very normal. Meanwhile, command center first for Mr. Barcode up here, so that's a very common opening on Whirlwind 2. Putting it on the low ground is a bit more risky. Many Terran players like to put it as part of their wall off, so this just means that you're slightly more exposed to very early pressure burn. Being up against IdrA, it's not that likely. IdrA going really economically focused, gas before pool even, so just going to be checking up, playing a very standard game. This is actually a really good game. It got recommended to me that I should cast this one. Someone tweeted me about it. So, yeah, if you do find a really good game and you're like, Madals, you should cast that, just send me a tweet. And I will do my utmost to make sure I give it a watch. And if you can actually tweet me a link to where I can get the replay, that would be also ace. So, yeah, here we go. We got gas coming down, racks coming down, command center. Basically the same thing happening for IdrA at the moment. Hatch, gas pool, so nothing too crazy. IdrA not actually scouting yet. He's just got this overlord coming in. He hasn't sent a drone out, which is a perfectly normal thing to do, and he's just about to discover in the near future that there's a command center there. Meanwhile, unfortunately for Mr. Barcode, he went every way bar the direction that IdrA is in, scouting anti-clockwise, and that's always one of these things which always gets me. Do you scout clockwise or anti-clockwise? I personally always scout clockwise. I don't know why, it's just something that I do. And I don't know, do most people? Do most people scout anti-clockwise? I should do like one of those straw polls that are always in Twitch chat and be like, which way do you scout? Because it's a completely irrelevant thing that makes very little difference most of the time. But yeah, still pretty interesting. I mean, you can argue that there are some differences, like you want to scout up in the horizontal position first normally, but aside from that, that's all good. So, IdrA has now seen that the SCV is coming in, he's seen that the command center's down, and everything's looking good for him. A factory is following this up for Mr. Barcode, which is the most normal of normal things you could expect. So we should be getting some Hellions, possibly 2-4 Hellions out, just getting some map control, bit of map dominance. IdrA pulled all drones out of gas, is getting speed down. This drone's out of gas just means he's going to take a quick third, and the drone already actually coming over here to secure that. And getting this quick third up is a good response when you've seen that the opponent has gone for a fast expansion, because you need to stay a base up. The drone just sitting up here for the time being. IdrA does have enough money to go for it, so should be chucking down the hatch, and there we go. So things going fairly to plan. For the time being at least, that's good to see. The reactor and factory just finishing up now, so the switch should be occurring. Only one gas, interestingly, the second gas being taken now, so this is just in a response that it makes slightly slower. Not going to be seeing a Stargate or anything like that likely to be coming down, and actually very interesting build here. Not going to be even getting out any kind of reactor Hellions, instead just going to go straight up to a tech lab, so a bit more unusual. Does have the command center coming down. IdrA has a good number of speedlings on the field, actually 12 on their way through. Was that scouted by anything? I'm not sure if it was, but this wall-off is being very rapidly built, so it must have got scouted down. So, yeah, this is just a direct response saying, okay, lots of speedlings coming, I don't want to die, need to get more marines, need to make sure that I can defend this. And that's why we've got the tank coming out, just to get in a good position. And with this, like, double wall-off coming down, it's going to be fairly hard for IdrA to break through, and things should be safe now for Mr. Barcode. And Barcode, with the tank on its way, that's good. And IdrA actually committed quite a bit to that. 12 Zerglings is a good number of drones, so it will put him behind a little bit economically from where he could have been otherwise, and especially when he did essentially no damage as a result of that. Not what he would have wanted, but he did force a tank out as opposed to Hellions. So in that respect, he's made himself a little bit safer from that harassment and that aggression. But an armory coming down very early on, this could be a sign that we're going up into a mech style play. Could also be just for the Hellbats. That's the other thing to look out for. Oh, but double armory, that ain't Hellbats, that is mech. That's straight away what you can what you can glean from that is if you've got two armories out, you're definitely going mech. Good hatchery placement, and I know this might seem like a really minor thing. He's making a macro hatch, Madals. What are you on about? But it's actually meaning that he doesn't have to have a creep tumor up in his main base because the hatcheries will join up the creep, which is a smart little move. It means that he can focus all creep tumors at the front of his natural, so that's a good move there. Widow Mines on their way out. We've got more factories going to be added on. The third CC is morphing into an orbital command, but IdrA already droning like a complete boss. He's up to a good 60 drones at the moment, and probably go for a couple more waves. His inject's still coming down nicely, up at 5 queens actually, so 2 dedicated creep spread queens, which on a big map is actually quite a nice move, because it means that you do get good creep coverage. And Terran players, especially meching Terrans, aren't going to be too happy about that. So the Overlord is going to come in and get the first bit of scouting information out, sees the third orbital command, which is always a nice thing to spot. Spore crawlers coming down to defend against drops potentially coming from the top. Really good thought processes by IdrA at the moment. This is the sort of thing which I like to see. It's planning out for the longer term. Hellbats are now in production, which is the point which I'm sure many people would just GG out of the game, because Hellbats are not a favoured unit to be up against by many players. But yeah, this is all good. The Overlord is just seeing the important stuff. The only thing it hasn't spotted are these 2 armories, but you know it's mech anyway when you've got these additional factories down, but just won't know that the 1-1 upgrades are coming out. And unfortunately that Overlord dying did actually supply block IdrA, which is a little frustrating, but he's up at 77 workers. Fully saturated everywhere, oversaturated at his third and natural and main, so doesn't really have to worry too much. He can just go about his normal stuff, take this 4th base, move some drones over, and be like, hey, everything's looking good. Also starting that 4th base, that was direct response to scouting this orbital command, so that's all looking good here. IdrA does also have his Roachron and 1-1 upgrades coming down, so this is, again, in response to mech. You want to be getting out those roaches, you want to be trying to get into a relatively good spot. Another cool thing to do with mech, which we may see IdrA do later on, is get some Vipers out. The thing he's got to be looking out for is how many tanks there are, because if you get a high tank commitment, Vipers can be exceptionally useful in order to get that down. The Hydra Den as well, really nice early on against this mech composition. So IdrA doing everything ace, just as I would be expecting. He's got his 5th hatchery on its way too, so just macroing up like a boss, banking up quite a few minerals for the time being, so just needs to make sure that he starts spending that money fairly soon, but just droning quite happily, going to take these additional gases very quickly in order to get a sizable gas income, and once he's in that spot he's going to be fine. He's actually up to nearly 90 drones now, so this is where he starts switching. He's got the 2-1 upgrades on the way, all of the Hydra upgrades coming, and this infestation pit even down too, so this can be for a fast hive most likely, but a push on its way across from Mr. Barcode, who isn't committing too heavily to tanks, just 3 down, and now switching into a few more Thors. So once you start seeing Thors down, you need more roaches in the composition, but these Hellbats coming like, I'm going to kill your third that isn't here, because as a Zerg you never want to expand towards your opponent. So good move by IdrA coming down here, means he's going to have an easier time to defend, but these Hellbats and tanks are moving up towards the natural base. Is IdrA going to be able to get out enough stuff in time? Well, he's already got a small force of Hydras and Roaches. He's got 12 more Roaches in production, but he's got to buy himself some time, because this push is now in his natural base. If it sieges up, it's going to be really frustrating, and well, in come the tanks. The Hellbats actually do a great job against Roaches and Hydras, so especially the Hydralisks. You're just seeing now how much damage they're able to soak up. The tanks are trying to get focused down. The Hydra's doing a nice work against those Hellbats, and for the moment IdrA is going to be able to hold. He did lose only 1 worker though. He pulled the rest of them right back towards that extractor, so taking minimal losses, a really good defense there. And actually in terms of resources lost, he lost hardly anything in that engagement, so really good to see. We've got the hive coming down, as well as the 4th command center for Mr. Barcode, who has completely cut tank production. He's just got 1 on its way out now, but he's committing a lot more to Thors, which is not a huge problem. The Hydra Den did go down. That's a bit frustrating because you want those Hydras out, but look at this. IdrA nearly maxed out and is now going for a bit of counter aggression. With just this number of Roaches up against such a small force will be good. Some Widow Mines are placed around the map. That's going to help squishy things up a bit, but not by a massive amount. Spire is also on its way down. This 5th base just going to be everything's beneficial now. The more bases IdrA has down, the more gas income he's got, the better for him. He can start getting more Hydra upgrades down too, because he didn't actually manage to finish the Hydra upgrades before the Hydra Den was taken out. That is really annoying, because now without Hydra speed, you're going to struggle to be able to pull back and defensive. Luckily, Mech is incredibly immobile, but a couple of tanks down here. The Widow Mines are getting some detonations off, but IdrA smartly sending some roaches in first. The tanks getting focused down first. The Widow Mines are desperately trying to burrow. Drilling Claws is not yet done. The Roaches, the Hydras need to prioritize these Thors. A lot of SCVs coming through here. Quite a few going to go down. And this is the sort of counter-aggression that you'd always want as a Zerg player. The Orbital Command straight away getting lifted up. And IdrA just really just putting on the pressure, and really there's not much the barcode Terran can do here. He can keep these Widow Mines chipping away, but losing or having to retreat from this third means that IdrA is now 3 bases up on his opponent. He's at 93 drones, and income wise he's just astronomically ahead. He's got 3 times basically the gas income of his opponent. That in itself is hugely beneficial, and he's going to be able to keep pumping units. He's starting up the Hydra upgrades. There's Groove Spines done, so range upgrade done. Viper's also being added into the composition just as expected, so he can start getting some blinding clouds down on the tanks, on the mech. 2 more command centers floating down, and actually we see it's going to be down to this bottom right one, but will the Overlord spot it? Yes, they're going to be able to. They're going to see the SCVs coming down here. Creep generation is already occurring, but a bit off to the side, so not going to be able to do that. But the Roach and Hydra Force should be able to get back. The Orbital Command floating back down to the third. But this 4th base, it's got to be so careful. There are the upgrades are looking pretty good for the Terran player. 2-2 up against 1-2 for the Zerg, but just so much here. Not going to be able to secure this base flat outright. In terms of defense, IdrA's maxed out up against 120 supply. The defense from the barcode Terran is going to have to be just so good at the moment. With the Vipers hitting the field as well, they're just going to start consuming. They're going to be ready to get some good abducts off, some good blinding clouds off, and that's going to make the mech, specifically the tanks, so much less effective against this composition IdrA's throwing at him. +2 missile attack is about to chip into, and this is where things start looking really good indeed. So IdrA is in a really comfortable spot at the moment. What he needs to do is keep containing his opponent. What the barcode Terran needs to do though is keep trying to take these bases. If he's able to secure them up, he's actually going to be able to macro hard and very fast. And if you can do that and get out a sizable mech force, actually okay, there's also lots of Widow Mines here, so if they get some good connections, then actually huge amounts of damage can be done, and that's why IdrA's being a little bit cautious. We see already some of those mines detonating. They burrow so quickly with Drilling Claws, and as long as he keeps this up and is able to secure these bases, not all is lost for the Terran yet. But IdrA, he's not going to want to let him get into that point, and that's why he's got this very aggressive posture. He's going to try and get into a nice spot, get some blinding clouds off. So many Widow Mines though. There is currently 25 Widow Mines down, and they can just do so much damage as we're already seeing, and that is incredibly problematic. But these Roaches and Hydras pushing in towards this third Orbital Command. The SCV's trying to repair. There are the tanks, but an instant blinding cloud means they are going to do a grand total of nothing, but some Vipers going down to some Widow Mines. IdrA behind this pumping out Greatest Spire, able to take out many SCVs at the moment, and taking out this many SCVs is always good. 36 have been killed, 100 drones up against 43, over double the worker count. IdrA's income is skyrocketing compared to his opponent, and that's why his bank is just astronomically high. These Widow Mines are getting some very cost-effective trades, but there's just so much stuff. IdrA can remax on nearly anything at the moment. His gas income could still get a little bit higher, so I'm glad to see that he's mining off of all of his gases. He could even take more hatcheries, more bases just to get more gas income, because he does have the Greatest Spire and the second Spire for upgrades on its way. These Roaches, these Hydras, they're pushing in. They're going to just try and be a little bit more aggressive here, but the double planetary fortress will be very problematic to try and take out. The Vipers are up here, but they're not going to be able to achieve that much. I'm going to use blinding cloud down on these planetary fortresses though, which will stop them being able to engage. But the Widow Mines even are getting some great damage down, and these Widow Mines just really allowing the barcode Terran to stay in this game. IdrA is going to have to sit back, try and remax. He's got 11 Corruptors coming out, and once he gets those Broodlords, that is when this mech force is going to start hurting. The drone count is still up at 100, exactly 106 soon to be on the field. And this is why spine crawlers have got to start coming down, because you don't want that many drones. The drones can also come and take this base. We should see the additional gases get taken. And IdrA, he's got so many minerals, he just needs to get the gas up to be able to afford all the Broodlords, and then he'll be quite happy. He's got the 1-1 flyer upgrades coming down. The only trouble with the Broodlords is he's got no missile attack yet, so the Broodlings won't deal the maximum amount of damage. But with the armor, with just the upgrades coming for air too, they're going to be really powerful. In terms of anti-air, currently all that this barcode Terran has available to him are the Widow Mines. So that is not ideal, but there are 2 starports on their way out. I believe a scan went down and did see the Greater Spire, so Viking production will get started up, but for the moment, the mines, the Hellions and tanks are moving forward, but there's a lot of Zerg here, just started stepping back, trying to take out as many mines as possible. A good number going down every single volley from those Hydras and Roaches. The tanks, the Hellions, well, they're trying to push forward, but just look at this creep spread for IdrA, halfway across the map, nice spread on it, and this is all due to just having those extra queens out early on. The Viper count is only a 1, but the Broodlords are here. That is going to be so difficult for the Terran player to deal with so little anti-air. More starports are in production, he's got to start ramping up the Viking count, but already the Hellions are getting taken out. Of course, the Widow Mines will trigger on the Broodlings, which is, again, minimizing how effective they can be, and this is just a great army composition. This bottom left base is going to be in a bit of trouble. Luckily there's 4 spine crawlers here to buy a bit of time, and this is a big commitment. Hellbats are morphing in, but the Broodlords just slowly creeping their way forward, and there is no retreat from this position. This is a big commitment by the Terran player to try and kill as much as possible, with the Hydras just ripping this apart for the time being, and this push is getting shut down. Very little losses have been taken here, just a couple of spine crawlers went down. Ravens are in production, Vikings are in production. This is the late game switch you're used to seeing, but IdrA, he's like 90 supply ahead at the moment, and yes, a lot of that is taken up in the work account, so the army supply is only 40 difference, but still 40 additional army supply when you've got these Broodlords out. The 1-1 air upgrades are finished, 2-2 air upgrades probably going to get started fairly soon. IdrA has got nearly 10,000 minerals banked up and 2,000 gas, so he can remax very quickly on whatever he wants, and he's going to start applying the pressure. The Vipers are needing to Blinding Cloud on these planetary fortresses because Broodlings and Broodlords are going to just be able to siege up against this base for as long as they'll want, and the response now has to be from this barcode turn to try and end it. The planetary fortress taking a lot of damage, and the Broodlords just still raining down pain on these Hellbats. The Vikings aren't actually anywhere to be seen because, well, the Hydras are just able to shut it down so effectively and so quickly. The repairs constantly going down, but the SCV count is going to just start dwindling now, and the Broodlords just going to maintain this siege on these bases, and this mining base so important to the Terran player. The Ravens are coming in, but the Hydra's doing a lot of damage. A single Seeker missile is going to be able to go down on some of these Broodlords, but just not doing enough damage, and even though this defensive point is staying, so many more Hydras following this up, and it is just a never-ending siege for the time being. More SCVs getting pulled, but are there enough? I just don't think there will be, especially as the Broodlords and Broodlings start chipping away at them. The first planetary fortress falls, the second one will now go down very quickly. Things looking incredibly good for IdrA now, and there is very little that this barcode Terran can do. He's trying to make a final stand, but frankly he's up against a maxed out Zerg force, and all in all, this is just going to be the slow march to defeat, and there we go. GG. Well played was called, and the IdrA wins the game. So I'm glad to see I finally got hold of a replay where IdrA wins, which is always good. So if you enjoyed that cast, make sure you like the video, leave a cool comment, and of course subscribe, because I get new games up every single day of the week. I'll catch you all tomorrow for yet another new game. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.